Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, good to see you. How nice to be here with you on the day that Rohatsu session begins. Fun. So, in preparing for this talk, I was just recalling when I first came here, which was about 20 years ago, and which is when my Zen practice began. And I've been reading these books. Danger. One of these people who reads a lot of books. And I remember I was reading a book I got it from the library. It was a collection of teachings from a Korean teacher named Sung-san, who founded the Kwanum School. And he was just really wild. You like walk into the room and it'd be like time for the Dharma talk, and it'd be like 1, 3, 7, blue, and then get up and leave. I was like, wow, what is this? It's really spontaneous and wild. And then, I read some koans, and I definitely didn't read this koan because this book, The Hidden Lamp, hadn't been published, but I thought this captured a little bit of the flavor of what I was picking up about Zen. So, this koan is called Yuanji Knocks the Body Down. When Master Yuanji was about to die on Mount Wute, he said to the monks around him, "I've heard of masters passing away while sitting or lying down, but have any died while standing?" "Yes, some," they replied. "What about upside down?" asked Yuanji. "No, we have never heard of such a thing," they said. Yuanji stood on his head and died. And his robes continued to drape his body in a dignified manner. The monks decided it was time to take his body to be cremated, but it was as immovable as a stone pillar. People from near and far came to marvel at the amazing sight. Yuanji's younger sister, the nun Yuanji, came to the place. She scolded, "Older brother, when you were alive, you flouted the laws of the Dharma, and even now that you're dead, you're still causing problems and making a nuisance of yourself." She gave the body a little push, and it toppled to the ground. Then the monks took the body to be cremated. Wow. So, I'm reading things like this, being like, this is going to be crazy. What's going to happen when I go over to this Zen center? So I came over, and I got here, and at the front door there was a sign which explained how to stand, walk, sit, and move in the Zendo, like a little map, how to walk around basically the living room of a house. I thought I knew how to walk, but no. And then I got there, and everyone was completely impassive in affect, and their bodies were aligned in this very precise, meticulous, and identical manner, and then moving really slowly and sort of choreographed around. And I thought, well, no one's standing on their head. What's going on? So I was confused. And thankfully, that's still true. But I was confused in a particular way here about this polarity between the enormous value that Zen literature and Zen practitioners place on spontaneity and seeing through conventions and not being caught by conventional ways of viewing things or conventional ways of acting, conventional modes of morality, conventional ways of looking at the world, in relationship to this enormous emphasis on embodying in a dignified way the Buddha Dharma in a way that is meticulous, where it's like, oh yes, I would like to learn about how when I enter the Zendo during formal practice, I step in with the foot nearest to the threshold, and when I step out with the foot nearest to the threshold. I would like to think about how to hold my thumb inside my fingers when my hands are in shashu. So, what is going on? So, this talk was in part prompted by a verse 22 of Vasubandhu's treatise on the three natures. Imagine that. So some of you may know, I recently had a book published called Vasubandhu's Three Natures, which is a translation of Vasubandhu's treatise on three natures. I will be teaching a class here starting on January 4th about this very body of teaching. But this particular verse was jumping out at me this week. It was on my mind, trying to immerse myself in Vasubandhu's vision. This verse says, the imaginary nature is conventional existence. The other dependent nature is the maker of conventional existence. And the complete realized nature is the cutting off of convention, it is said. Now you might be like, I have no idea what you're talking about now. Well, that's not surprising. I would just say the great irony of this is, in this body of teaching in Mahayana Buddhism, conventional nature is anything that is said has to be upheld by conventions because there has to be a linguistic convention. When I say a word, you have to know what that word is, and we have to have a shared meaning that we ascribe to it. So what's great about this verse is it says, at the end it says, complete realized nature, so that's like enlightenment, is the cutting off of conventions, it is said. Which is to say, everything I just said isn't really true. It's just a conventional imagination that we're having right now. So, as much as I love to go beyond all conventions, one of the conventions that has utility that we live with is time. And I'm going to request that our Doan and time cube replaces the clock forward of their body to create the convention that we will leave here in a timely manner. Thank you, Mr. Streed. So, the imaginary nature is conventional existence. So the implications of this are really, really vast, but here I just want to say the main point is we're making this up. We're making this up. The world we live in is something we make together. This is about power. This is about realizing that the conventions that we have that we think are absolutely real and everything should be that way are just stuff that we have made up as sentient beings and that we live in. And that we don't have to keep living in the ones that cause harm. That's the main implication of this idea that the imaginary nature is conventional existence. So one thing I've just been tripping out about, to use the Dharmic term, is that cities, the way our cities are built for cars, they're built for cars as much as they're built for people. And like just within 100 years, you know, like you go to like the East Coast, they're not built for cars very well. They're trying, but it's like crazy. But here it's just like everything built for cars. Just reading about like in the United States, highway fatalities are sinking much less rapidly than in other countries. Because in this country, more than other places, we built things for cars. And it's like 100 years ago, we didn't have cars. So it took 100 years for everyone to just think it's totally normal to drive all over the place all the time, to be like, oh my gosh, someone's in my parking spot. You know, what happened? And we just, when we move through the city, one does not think about this. We conventionally experience what we have here and we forget that we made it, and it doesn't always have to be that way. We're making it together. And just like, you know, the examples of this, you could really go on forever, but just like another example is we make what we have. So like if I say something like, oh, you know, if you ever get married, your wife will be blah, 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 blah. I am participating in the convention of making heteronormativity. So I'm actively involved in making the situation where we all think that what a marriage is something that happens between a man and a woman, which isn't true. Definitely is not true. So we can just see how like the way we talk about things is constantly and unconsciously creating the world we live in, which has a lot of wonderful things in it, but in case you haven't noticed, also has some harmful things happening. So this is kind of underlying implication of the fact that the imaginary nature is conventional existence. The dependent nature is the maker of conventional existence. I'm not going to talk about this as much, but we can just say that the way the assumptions that we make by which we create the world come from a lot of conditions. It's not like I just invent language right now out of thin air and you happen to invent it the same way at the same time, right? There has to be a lot of conditioning for that, or conventional understandings of how the economy should work. Like the weirdest thing is like you hand someone a piece of paper and that seems to have meaning to both of you. It's like, hey, you hand a piece of paper that has the number 100 on it, you're like excited. This is a transfer of something. It's a transfer of paper pulp. What's the deal? It's a dead tree. Apparently it has some other meaning to people. Money is entirely imaginary, for sure. But it really matters to us, right? Because that's what we live in, is this conventional constructed existence. Anyway, by seeing that the dependent nature is the maker of conventional, it helps us to realize that it's like we can have some compassion for each other because everyone is meeting us this world with huge amounts of conditioning, creating the way we perceive the world. No one is outside of that frame. All people are like this. So anyway, you're like, wow, you moron, how could you see it that way? Well, because of conditions that made your conventional existence. Can we have some compassion for the fact that we're all being formed and our world is formed in this way, moment to moment? The imaginary nature is conventional existence. The dependent nature is the maker of conventional existence. The complete realized nature is the cutting off of convention, it is said. Ooh, wow, that sounds exciting. Cutting off is such a, I can't remember the Sanskrit that we used, but it seemed pretty much like cutting off, or I don't know, it might be seeing through. But here, this is where we get in Zen this enormous emphasis and celebration of just like, how can we shatter the conventional views of what should be happening here, how people should treat a dead body, how a person with the dignified comportment should die, probably not standing on their head. So we see this celebration that emerges from this kind of understanding of cutting off convention and doing something really startling in order to help us see beyond our kind of trapped views. So I just want to read you a brief passage from a book called Entry into the Inconceivable, which is a collection of Huayan texts. So I like to just read people some ancient Buddhist texts, and I think a lot of times it's like, I don't even know what that means. But by practicing just hearing the literature, it starts to become something we can conventionally understand, which has value. So this is just talking about ways of, oh shoot. Did I lose my page? Everybody, bad things have happened. Aha, okay. So this is talking about morality or ethics, that is to say, how to conduct oneself. And it's going to give two different ways. First is the virtue of subtle action according to conditions without convention. First is the virtue of subtle action according to conditions without convention. So what we're talking about is meeting whatever is happening in a way that is might not be easy to understand, which goes completely beyond conventions. Like, in early Buddhism or in Rinzai tradition, it's like Matsu was like, what if I yell? Might that wake you up? Now that became a convention in Rinzai, and then it's like you just yell at your students all the time, which may or may not be helpful, I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm not trying it. So then, second is the virtue of maintaining dignified, well-regulated, exemplary conduct. This means the 4 dignified modes of bearing: walking, standing, sitting, or lying down. This is a ladder out of the mundane, a swift boat over the ocean of suffering to help beings and guide the lost. Nothing is greater than this. Therefore, the treatise on yoga says, not great sinking, not small floating, always abiding in right mindfulness, flawlessly cultivating pure conduct, basic. The Huayan scripture says, morality is the basis of unexcelled enlightenment. You should fully uphold pure morality. So here, they're becoming more specifically, so when we talk about conduct, in most Buddhist literature, we're usually talking about precepts, or the main way of talking about conduct. How should you live in a way that is conducive to people being free from suffering? What will work? What will work? And we have here in this classic Mahayana literature this polarity between the shattering convention and the completely embodying the conventional. The Dhammapada says, if you wish to reach the other shore of existence, that is to say nirvana, if you wish to reach the other shore of existence, give up what is before, behind, and in between, set your mind free and go beyond birth and death. Well, it seems pretty conventional that there's something before, behind, and in between. It's like all your ideas of space or time, just put those down. That might work. Or if we go to George Clinton in Parliament Funkadelic, it says, free your mind, and pardon the figure of speech, your ass will follow. Free your mind and your butt will follow. So, I was thinking, who does this? So have you ever heard of the Guerrilla Girls? It's the Guerrilla Girls is like a feminist art movement, and it's pretty actively feminist, anti-racist, anonymous, and identitylessness. So the Guerrilla Girls, generally speaking, they don't publish their names anywhere, and when they're doing public actions, they wear gorilla masks. And they just do things to point out racism and patriarchy within the art world. And, so just to give you a sense of what they do, in case you can't tell, it's a little unconventional. I hope you're picking up on that. So one thing they did is they went to like the Met Museum, I think in New York, I'm not sure, Metropolitan Museum in New York, and they took a picture of like, or they got in front of like a really famous nude, like, I don't know, Goya's Maja or something, really some nice naked ladies, and they put on their gorilla masks, and they came with a big banner that says, do women have to be naked to get into the Met Museum? And if you don't actually know, like, either experientially or just plain statistically, the enormous patriarchy that is throughout the art world in the United States is extensive. And it's changing because of people like the Guerrilla Girls who just were like, we're not gonna wait. We're just gonna show up and do something utterly shocking that points out the conventions that no one is seeing. People weren't talking about having lots of naked women in museums had to do with the objectifying the woman's body until like 50 years ago. People had to point to that convention, which was a breaking of convention, which creates a new convention. Now in the US of A, we have like what I would call an inflation in the currency of rebellion. So I don't know if you've ever been to Hot Topic, but it's just like, you're just like gonna go to like middle school wearing bondage gear in the United States. It's like, wow, what happened here? Or like, if you listen to the lyrics of Rolling Stone songs, oftentimes they are intensely offensive. And at the time that they originally came out, they were really shocking. And now it's like, that's what you play at your like birthday party for your 6-year-old, because it's like a fun jam. What happened? What happened? So anyway, I just wanted to point that part out, but this idea that what you can do is you can kind of crack through the way you're thinking about things and create freedom is powerful. But oftentimes in Zen practice, we use a different approach, which is to completely embody conventional conduct in order to get free. So I'm about to attend 7 days of Rohatsu Sesshin. So I'll be walking around this room in shashu. I'll be taking off my robes at the right time and putting them on at the right time. I'll be picking up my chopsticks in a very particular, prescribed, and ritualized manner. I'll be putting them down in a very precise and particular manner. I'll be using my voice only in particular contexts, and almost all of them ritualized, chanting with other people. And again, to use the Dharmic term, I'm stoked that I get to do this. This is amazing that we get to do this. So here, by embodying this dignified way of being, an enormous freedom can arrive. And one of the reasons that this makes sense when you think it doesn't is that probably most people in this room think freedom means being able to do what you want. And in Buddhism, that is not what freedom means. Freedom means the capacity to embody liberation for all beings right now. That's what liberation is. Liberation is the ability to embody liberation for all beings right now. And for most of us, doing what we want is not that, really. You know, there's a lot of selfishness. We do a lot of selfishness that was unconscious or conscious. So by practicing just putting us in a container that is designed to support people being free from suffering, where the intentionality that we continually call into our hearts is that we're doing it so all beings could be free from suffering, we kind of let the part of us that's just trying to get what it wants be quiet. And when it says, no, this is driving me crazy, then we get to see it, which is really good. Like, oh, look at what has arisen here. It's deserving compassion. So there's a nice koan. I'll read to you. I won't read it because I don't have it written down. It shows a teacher moving from conventional to unconventional because he's like, this isn't about me. This isn't about what I want or even what I think is a great idea. This is about the relationships I'm in right now. So one day Genshi went to the kitchen and saw a pot of noodles boiling. Suddenly the bottom of the pot fell out. The monks were crestfallen. They said, oh, what a waste. And Genshi said, an overturned bucket is a joy. Why then are you disturbed? And the monk said, well, I guess the master can take delight in it. And Genshi said, oh, really? It's a shame to waste a pot of noodles. So Genshi walks in and sees you don't really need, but an overturned bucket or a broken bucket is a symbol for enlightenment in Buddhism. But here, the main point is he walks in, he comes in, the cooks are working, as someone is going to be cooking here. Ted comes in and something breaks, and he's like, great! And I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be grumpy. And hopefully he'll be like, it's okay. But anyway, here, he's like, wow, it's like this now. Here we are. Amazing. And they're like, yeah, we're not feeling that. He says, okay, great. It's terrible. This isn't about me and like I have enlightenment or you don't. It's just about how do I meet you? How do I meet you? So we have precepts in Buddhism. We just had a precept ceremony. You can take the precepts into your heart without doing a ceremony. It's not that hard. You just go, yes, I vow not to kill, but to nurture life. I vow not to lie, but to be truthful. I vow not to misuse sexuality, but to be caring and faithful in intimate relationships. I vow not to intoxicate the mind and bodies of self or others. I vow not to take what is not given, but to be generous. And you could take them formally, or receive them formally, more accurately. But these are conventional things, right? They're conventional things. And they can really help. It's like we look at these conventional understandings, we provide context here at MZMC for people to think about them, how to live them, how to embody them, and how they can be traps. Because we're informed by this idea that the conventional has value, but it also is not the absolute truth. It's not the absolute truth. But just like embodying these dignified, beautiful, ceremonial, ritual activities in this space together, embodying the precepts can help us see through our conventional internal processes that create suffering, that we want to kind of ignore or push away. So I like to do guided meditations, and some people know what that means. So I think I want to do a little guided meditation practice here that has to do with according with conventional existence and breaking out of conventional existence. So I'm just going to invite you to arrange your body in any posture you consider conducive to meditation. So you could stand up or sit down. I guess there's not room for walking here in this space or lying down at this time. And here, this will be an involved visualization, so I'm just going to invite you to let your eyes close. And for most meditation practices, I think it's really good to start by grounding in the breath and the body. Just bringing your attention there as the foundation of mindfulness. And then letting awareness of the body be an opening to awareness of any emotions that arise. So throughout this meditation process, awareness is grounded, or mindfulness is rooted on the body, and there is sensitivity of emotions arising from mindfulness of the body. So now I'm going to invite you to use your capacity for imagining or remembering, which are quite similar. And think about some place where you have benefited from or could benefit from following exemplary conduct more thoroughly. So this might be just some place where you kind of know what would be good to do, but you're not doing it as much as you think you should. Or it might be sometime you remember making a change in your conduct where it was clear what would be more beneficial. Here, focusing on things that was, within conventional morality, not harming, not stealing, not lying, not intoxicating, not misusing sexuality, not speaking harshly. Just think if you can remember a time when you've made a change, or imagine yourself making a change. See if you can picture like an actual situation. It's like, oh, that's where I tend to not follow what I know would be beneficial. In a conventional way. Just picture yourself doing that which would be good. What would you say? How would your body be? What would you see? What would you hear, smell? As you do this, just notice any sensations in the body that arise or emotions. Let's let this imagining go and just let the attention rest in the breath and the body. Aware of any feelings, emotions, or affect. Now I'm going to invite you again to imagine or remember a circumstance in which you went against convention in a way that seemed beneficial, or imagine a circumstance where you would go against convention or cut through convention in a way that's beneficial. So this could be going against the stream of sort of societal conventions or just the way our culture operates, or it could be within a family, it could be conventions with an organization you're into. Trying to think of a particular circumstance so that you can really imagine yourself, or maybe remember yourself in that situation vividly. The actual visual environment, trying to picture or remember what it looked like, the sounds. And just try and picture yourself cutting through convention in a way that's beneficial and liberative for everyone involved in the big picture. As you do this, being sensitive to any changes in physical sensations in the body, any emotions that arise. You can just let go of imagining. Just let the attention sink into the body, the breath. Allowing the eyes to open. All right, well, I know some people, it's like, they really enjoy visualizing meditation, and other people are like, I can't think of anything. So, wow, if you can't think of anything, you probably got this down. Awesome. Well, I know. All kinds of things come up when we practice meditation, any kind. And just practice welcoming it all with some compassion and some patience. So, I'm recalling an instance where some of these themes came up for me. As everyone here knows, a few years ago, George Floyd was murdered by some Minneapolis police officers. And it was a horrible and traumatic event for certainly George Floyd and his family, but for hundreds of millions of people. And it was a very stressful time here, as I think all of you know, for everyone that I talked to. In the aftermath of that, And I remember going to a meeting of the Multi-Faith Anti-Racist Change and Healing Table, which I am a part, which is a group of anti-racist multi-faith clergy. And we meet regularly and have been for years. And then after George Floyd's murder, we were meeting extra to try and get some stuff done. And so I was at this meeting of the March table, and it was just a few days after the murder, and people were super stressed. I mean, it was just terrible. People were, just personally, I had been tear gassed, I'd been pepper sprayed. Two of my sons had like 6 to 8 inch bruises on them from non-lethal rounds. So I was stressed. And, in particular, my Black colleagues on the group had just been deeply impacted by that sort of explosion of intergenerational trauma reaction. And everyone was super confused because you remember there was there were all these agent provocateurs coming in, planting bombs in the city. We're like, what do we even do? It was very confusing. So people were exhausted. They were, just overwhelmed. And it was like, we're sitting in this meeting. It had to be a Zoom meeting, of course, in these days. So we're sitting in this Zoom meeting, looking at each other. What are we going to do? And people, we're just holding the anguish. And so one of my colleagues was like, I know what we should do. We should watch Prince sing with the Muppets. And she put on this video of his song, Starfish and Coffee, Maple Syrup and Jam, Butterscotch Clouds and a Tangerine, side order a ham. If you set your mind free, baby, maybe you'll understand. Starfish and Coffee, Maple Syrup and Jam. And by the end of the song, everybody's body in the meeting, you could see him moving. Starfish and coffee. If you set your mind free, baby, maybe you'll understand. What a surprise. What a surprise. Unconventional. Just like, what could we do here? Creativity, possibility. Not waiting. This is the basic message of Soto Zen. Don't wait for liberation. She was like, let's do it now. And it wasn't like, oh, we're just going to ignore how we feel. But this whole thing of being totally present to how you feel is cool. But it's like, if you feel bad, you don't have to just sit in it for the rest of your life. You could do something else. There's possibility. Possibility. So we did that, and we did some other stuff too. I don't know, we planned some things and made some spreadsheets, really cool stuff that we do. Actually, Dana made the spreadsheet, so I shouldn't claim that we did it. But anyway, thank you, Dana. Yeah, it's a possibility. The Eightfold Path basically sets up this dichotomy between complete conventional embodiment of the form of liberation with setting your mind free. Because if you look at the structure of it, when we move into right speech, right action, right livelihood, these are about these are things we are recommending you do if you want freedom from suffering. You can choose to do these, and they're pretty laid out. It's like, okay, I'm going to put my body so my body does liberation. Because frankly, a lot of times my mind doesn't want to. It just wants to do stuff for me. Old selfish old stuff. And then, right effort, right mindfulness, or right samadhi. You get into the higher stages of right samadhi, it's you're going beyond birth and death, you're going beyond space and time, you're going beyond self and other. Realm of neither perception or non-perception. What is that? Free your mind. And with Zen, Zazen practice, just sitting. Put the body into the container of practice And then just like, we're not trying to control the mind or make the mind be anything in particular. Whip the mind into shape. All that's just conventional control, management. There's something very, very free available. Just let the body settle down. So anyway, some of you I'll be hanging out with all week in here. And other people I won't, but we'll all be together anyway. Because the fact that separation exists is just a conventional understanding. So we can all practice together in our own ways. There isn't any person who can't do embodiment of liberation right now. Always available. Always available. Thank you. So now, I would like other people to use their voices. I invite questions or comments. I feel like there are people I never hear from in here on Sunday. That would be so cool to hear from some of those people who are never bringing their voices in. No pressure. There's enough of you. There's enough of you that it's not like I'm looking at 3 people and there's only one who never talks. But yeah, would love to hear from anyone. Yeah.
Jamie.
I'm going to invite you to speak
Okay,
so they
thank
can
you. Thanks for talking this morning. I appreciated the, at times, thinking about it, at a time I've stepped out of like conventional and like what's okay in this circumstance. Currently I work as a nurse. I work with a lot of people with mental health and in recovery in the homeless population, and like as a nurse, you have like a set standard to kind of uphold yourself as a respectable member of society, and people are looking up to you for help. And I've gotten in that situation. I'm in recovery myself, and taking care of somebody in recovery, it took a lot at first to cross that barrier and open myself up in that realm, and this is okay. But once I was able to, it was a very liberating feeling for me, and I hope for the person I was showing up for as a nurse, and that's the feedback I've kind of gotten in that situation. So that was affirming.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So just to, if anyone couldn't hear that, that was a story about cutting through professional boundaries that say like, oh, I'm just a nurse. I have to, take care of your body, basically. It's a lot of times what they're teaching you to do, I think. But to meet people with your own recovery, other people in recovery, that's very cool. Yeah, thank you. Other folks.
Dan, it's Mark Gemmel. How you doing?
Mark, good.
Whenever anybody says something like, I want to hear from people that don't usually talk, I'm hearing, Mark Gemmel, don't say anything. So I want to thank you for that. No, I want to get, when you say we're making all this up, there's this notion of consensus reality that I think Charles Tart coined years ago. Reality is what we all agree reality is. And when I start to think about that, how deep that goes, and then that's related to conventions, right? Convention is a word that says this is what is ordinarily accepted as reality. And so, just in my work on myself as a person and my work in mental health, I see how deep that is. It's really incredible. The story that we tell ourselves about the world and our lives is incredible. And so I was thinking in like I do a lot of work with couples, and I've been noticing lately how cliche we all are, how we do the same things. It's so deep. It's in every sitcom, it's in every movie, how we're supposed to act in relationship. comparing ourselves to an ideal which does not exist. But it's just kind of funny because if I'm asking a couple of questions, say, which one of you does this and which one does that, they look at me like I'm a genius. You know, say, no, I'm a married guy. That's how I know what I'm talking about. And you're the sixth couple I've talked to in the last couple of days. But it's just, that's just one example. And then the way we put ourselves down and the really typical ways in which we talk to ourselves about that. It's an amazing thing. So liberation is just a great word, but being free of that. And in meditation, that's one place where you can be free of that. So it's just good to be reminded of that. Oh, I want to thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah. Yeah, and you know what I'm hearing in there is just that thing of like how in some ways it's so obvious, like the conventions that we have that cause us to suffer are so obvious, but sometimes it's so impossible to see at the same time. You know, it's like when I was an addict, like everyone from the outside could be like, what the hell? And I'm like, no, this just makes perfect sense to do what I'm doing. So, you know, the same thing, you know, people look at other countries and they'll be like, what are you thinking over there? And it's like, well, what? We're just doing what we do. So being able to kind of, it does help to be able to hear those outside perspectives, like, you know, get Mark to come and talk to you about your marriage. He might give you some insights.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Other folks?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Oh, Melinda, yeah.
I like the see through our internal conventional processes that are causing suffering. And then the something you said right before that, this isn't about me, it's about a relationship. That's one that I've been struggling with more.
Yeah, yeah, it can be really hard, right? And I'm probably not gonna, I don't know if this is the helpful way to go with this, but you know, basically all the stuff we think is out there is conventionally constructed, and all the stuff we think is us is just conventionally constructed. None of it is absolutely real. And so it's like being able to go in there and be like, oh, this is the feeling that I have. These are the thoughts that I have. They matter, but certainly the thoughts aren't the absolute truth. And even the feelings aren't a place I have to reside. You know, it's something to meet with some compassion, but it's gonna pass along. But yeah, the other convention, and actually that ties kind of what you're saying. We have a conventional understanding that there's a self and then an external world. That's just a conventional understanding. It's not actually, according to Buddhism, a true thing. And so that's why I tend to point to, it's like, it's always relationship that helps to kind of soften that very bound. It's like boundaries are good, but also being able to see past them is also good. So anyway, thanks for raising that up. Joel, do you want to say something?
Well, thank you. Thank you for talking. I want to say something and I'm scared at the same time. Okay. When you talked about, was it the gorilla women?
Gorilla girls.
Gorilla girls. My mind went to several recent incidents where people threw, I think, tomato juice on great works of art. I think they threw tomato juice on a Van Gogh, on lilacs, I forget, sunflower. And for me, that is an example of, in some ways, in some quarters, a conventional way of looking at things that for me, it feels like an attack as an artist. And I mean, I don't know if this is something for this context, maybe for a more private thing, but in terms of challenging and accepted, you know, moral code or convention within a certain group of people who, in general, in terms of their aspirations, I totally agree with and always have. It seems to me, for example, that these kids, I think they're mostly very young, did absolutely nothing for climate change. What they did is achieve 15 minutes of fame on the media for themselves. and that if they want to do something for climate change, it might be more helpful for them to spend years mastering climate science, for example, or do a sit-in or a peaceful demonstration at an oil facility. And it disturbs me very much as an artist. A lot of the attitudes and misunderstandings that people have, people on progressive people on art, and and for me it's very painful. I think for most of us, many people that I know, of course I'm in that world, tremendously painful because we feel excluded. We feel, many of us, excluded from actively working for progressive causes. Because when we go to progressive events, we feel attacked as artists. And I just wanted to bring that up with great terror and respect. You know, and I think, yeah, I guess at this point, that's what I have to say. We might want to talk about it or what, but we might not.
Thank you, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah, so it's painful, you know, as we break conventions. It can be painful to be around. We're never gonna do it right, because right and wrong is convention. But we can talk to each other in relationship about how to support each other and care for each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate you raising up like your personal experience. It matters. And, you know, because to me here, probably the most important thing is the potential eradication of hundreds of thousands of more species and hundreds of millions of people, that whatever we do, the convention that we have that our society should move the way it is and continue to consume in the way that we do and not end climate change, it would be really good to do something else. But yeah, we should look for ways to challenge that convention that are effective and compassionate. And I encourage everyone here to do that. And to listen to each other when we're like, oh, that was really painful for me. Yeah. So we are really low on time. In fact, I think we're out of time. So sorry, I'd be happy to chat afterwards. Yeah, so liberation isn't even possible, but actually, according to these teachings, it's like how things are, which is a great mystery. I'll acknowledge it. But we don't have to wait. We can meet each other with our whole hearts and see through divisions and take care of ourselves in a boundaried way when we need to. And I'm really grateful that we get to do that together. So I'm going to turn it over to our Doan. Thank you all very much.